Chapter 5, Mishnah 6. This Mishnah briefly moves away from the topic of a city's tichum and discusses the law of making one shitufe mevuos for an entire city. In theory, all the streets in a properly enclosed city, for example, a city with a wall around it, can be joined in one shitufe mevuos, which would permit carrying anywhere in the city. However, the rabbis were concerned that people seeing this might think that it is permitted to carry even in a public domain. The rabbis therefore decreed that any city whose streets might be confused with the public domain must leave some part of the city out of its shitufe mevuos, in order that carrying be forbidden in some part of the city. In this way, people will remember that it is forbidden to carry in a public domain. Our Mishnah illustrates this rule. We now turn to the words of the Mishnah. If a city that used to be owned by one person now became the property of many people, we may make one eruv, i.e. shituf, for the whole city. Even though it is now owned by many, people will not confuse its streets with a public domain because it began as a city owned by one person, which does not have a public domain. On the other hand, if a city used to be owned by many people and it now became the property of one person, its streets might still be thought of as a public domain, since it began as a city owned by many. Therefore, we may not make one eruv for the entire city unless we make an exclusion from the eruv, whose size is at least like that of the town of Hadasha in Judea, which had 50 residents. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon says it is sufficient to exclude from the eruv an area of just 3 courtyards with 2 houses in each courtyard.